The falling leaves drift by my window. The falling leaves of red and gold.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Bufnagle, the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I am Rafe, and it's a Tuesday, which makes it a great Tuesday because it's a podcast Tuesday, and I get to do a podcast with you. You are the world's greatest listeners, as you know, because you have made us a global top 10% podcast. Remember, you can reach us at bufnagle.com. Share the love, share the buff, give us a 5-star review, hit subscribe and like and the smiley stars and all those things. Tell a friend to listen, and you will get a free episode. And there's a link somewhere in the show notes, somewhere in there. If you dig around, it's a surprise. You will find something in there where you can buy me a coffee, and that would be greatly appreciated. Hey, winter, spring, summer, fall, those are the seasons, but sometimes it's not fall, it's autumn, right? And should it be autumn? Should it be fall? Well, I tried to do a deep dive, but you know, if the water is shallow, you can't dive deep. So I found pretty much nothing on this. Right, autumn is from a Latin word, autumnus, and fall is from English, meaning like fall of the leaves, right? But there are other seasons in Latin, like the other ones I listed there. Ver, V-E-R, and I think also verin, something like that. That's spring, ver, and estus, A-E-S-T-A-S, is summer. Autumnus, of course, is autumn. And I think it's Himes, H-I-E-M-S, is winter. Maybe it's Hemes, maybe it's Himes. I'm not Latin. I don't know that. So anyway, those are the words in Latin for the seasons. Now vernal is still a word that we have around for springtime. We have the vernal equinox, and we have words that come from these Latin words for summer. We have a word like estivate, which is kind of, well, it's like hibernating in the summer. Okay. So estivate comes from heat and summer, those words, and hibernate comes from hibernus and hiberna, meaning winter and wintry. You know, some animals estivate, like frogs and things, salamanders. Sometimes they would just go into this kind of steady state because it's too hot and they're losing too much water. So they just kind of hang out, wait for it to cool down a bit. But English, I guess, seemed to already have words for spring and summer and winter, but autumn time was typically called something like harvest time. So the introduction of using the word autumn in the Middle Ages seemed to catch on. Somebody said that it came in the 1300s. Somebody came in the 1500s. I guess nobody really knows. So anyway, autumn caught on, and so I'm going to call it autumn. I like autumn. It feels a little classier. I don't like fall. It just seems so. I mean, fall is a great word if you're like 7. 6 maybe, but we can use autumn because this is a podcast for grownups, that's for sure. So we are in autumn. I am in autumn. I hope maybe you are too. Temperatures have dropped, but not a lot here in our autumn time. We have entered some drought-like times here in central Indiana, like we do every year. So leaves are turning, the fruits are dropping, and the leaves are dropping. They are falling. So it's summer has run its course. We're now in autumn. It is harvest time, as they say. So I was walking the other day, and I like to crunch the dried leaves that are sitting there along the sidewalk. If they haven't scattered themselves to get into a nice cozy place for the winter, I will crunch them and grind them into little bits of dust. I like I said, I was walking, crunching the dry leaves, and I was thinking about autumn. And Harry has this friend from the tropics. Okay, he's from the Maldives, a group of islands off the coast of India. It's in the middle of the Indian Ocean. The closest country, India, is something like 600 kilometers away. It's like 370 miles or something. And the Maldives is a series of islands, a lot of islands. It's like 120 or 1,200. Like some of them are really tiny and some of them are bigger. And you can go hang out at a resort there. And Harry's friend was from there. And the Maldives are, like I said, tropical, maybe even, I guess, highly tropical, if that's a concept, because they're very close to the equator. They are all like within 10 degrees of the equator. And as such, when this friend went to West Point in New York, he was met for the first time with seasons in North America, and he said he found it absolutely fascinating. He told us that like everything was lush and green, and things got colder, and things turned to colors, and then they were brown, and then everything died, and winter came and pummeled everything for a couple of months. But then springtime came, and a miracle occurred. Everything came back to life. It was just incredible. So he was fascinated by this concept of the seasons, and he thought it was absolutely incredible. And in fact, the seasons really are incredible. In particular, autumn. Nathaniel Philbrick, he's an author. He wrote the book Mayflower, which we discussed in episodes 111, 114, and 116 back in autumn of 2022. This book Mayflower is obviously about the Pilgrims. These 3 episodes actually were redrops. What do we call them? Bufnagle classic redrops in Thanksgiving of 2024, episodes 164, 165, 66. You can listen to them there, but it's a great story. The Pilgrim story is a phenomenal story. And Philbrick says on page 118, talking about Thanksgiving and autumn, neither Bradford, who was one of the Pilgrim guys, nor Winslow, another one of the Pilgrim guys, mention it, but the first Thanksgiving coincided with what was, for the Pilgrims, a new and startling phenomenon, the turning of green leaves of summer to the incandescent yellows, reds, and purples of a New England autumn. With the shortening of the days comes a diminishment in the amount of green chlorophyll in the tree leaves, which allows other pigments contained within the leaves to emerge. In Britain, the cloudy fall days and warm nights cause the autumn colors to be muted and lackluster. In New England, on the other hand, the profusion of sunny fall days and cool but not freezing nights unleashes the colors latent within the tree leaves, with oaks turning red, brown, and russet, hickories golden brown, birches yellow, red maples scarlet, sugar maples orange, and black maples glowing yellow. It was a display that must have contributed to the enthusiasm with which the Pilgrims later wrote of the festivities that fall. So people love autumn. Okay, they love the turning of the leaves and the colors. And like I said, Philbrick mentions this, and he mentions a little bit on there about why the leaves change. But I figured I would dig this up for you, so you don't have to brush off your textbooks. There's a whole chapter in my college biology book, a whole chapter on photosynthesis, and photosynthesis is the process by which trees make food. So it's a pretty important thing. And they also produce oxygen as a byproduct of that. And the big trick there is this pigment called photosynthesis. It's a pigment called chlorophyll. The process of photosynthesis, yes. So leaves are green because chlorophyll doesn't really bother to use green light. Okay, so yes, that's correct. The green component of white light simply gets reflected by the leaves. It is not used. The photons with lower and higher wavelengths. Okay, so the lower wavelengths would be red, and the higher would be violets and blues. They get absorbed by the chlorophyll molecules, and this absorption extinguishes the photons, and the resultant energy pushes electrons in the atoms of the chlorophyll molecule to higher energy states. So you have chlorophyll in there. The chlorophyll doesn't use the green. It uses the reds and the blues. There's actually 2 different kinds of chlorophyll in there, but let's leave that for a different day. And basically they absorb red light and then blue and the violet light. And that absorption of that light pushes the electrons to greater or higher energy shells in that molecule. The atoms in the molecule have the electrons at higher energy shells. Now, so we have molecules of chlorophyll with excited electrons, right? This excited chlorophyll then hands off these excited electrons to another molecule called NADP. And in the process, it replaces that electron by stealing another one from a water molecule, releasing oxygen from the water molecule in the process. So the plant has to have water next to the chlorophyll, and the excited electron gets handed from chlorophyll to NADP, and then the chlorophyll is short electrons, so he reaches over and grabs one from the water molecule. That in turn breaks the hydrogen-oxygen bonds there, and oxygen, O2, is released in the process. That NADP molecule then escorts that electron down what's called an electron transport chain, which was like 25 pages in the book, so I'm not going to go into that, where the energy of that electron is used to bind together the carbon atoms that the plant gets from CO2. And it uses those components then to make sugars, fatty acids, amino acids, and such things. Okay, so you have sunlight allowing chlorophyll to grab energy from a photon to break water apart. This releases the oxygen, and then excite an electron. This electron has energy that gets used to turn carbon dioxide into the stuff of life. Okay, so it's an absolute miracle. There's no question about that. This information was discovered since the year 1800. A lot of work recently in the last 80 years or so about exactly how that works. But it's fascinating. It's wonderful biochemistry. It is understanding it is within the reach of. I bet if you were a really bright high school kid, you could get that. It's taught in most science-based biology courses. So, like I said before, there's two kinds of chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, and there are also other pigments in the leaves. Okay, now Philbrick mentioned this. Among them are pigments like beta carotene, phycoerythrin, and phycocyanin. So those are some other ones that are helpful. They are called accessory pigments, and these accessory pigments absorb photons with some of the other wavelengths, a little bit different than the chlorophyll does, and they transfer that energy then to the chlorophyll, allowing a greater proportion of the visible light spectrum to be absorbed. Okay, and what Philbrick says then that the shorter days and the cooler nights, in that time frame, the trees stop producing chlorophyll, and it breaks down. And when it goes away, when that pigment goes away, the other pigments are still there. And now we get to see what they are releasing. So the different species have different distributions of accessory pigments, and these give us the different colors that Philbrick mentioned. It's a grand and miraculous show. And like I said, in North America, it is phenomenal because of the nature of the weather here compared to, for example, England. It's not quite as grand. It gets muted there with the, like I said, the warm nights and the less dramatic change in the weather and the lack of sunshine. So we get autumn leaves, okay, and they fall down and they get blown around. And sometimes they're on the sidewalk and I crunch them. The weather gets cool. We drink pumpkin spiced lattes and such things. And then in 1945, we get Les Feuilles Mortes, which is The Dead Leaves, a song by Joseph Cosma with lyrics by Jacques Prévert. And in 1950, English lyrics were written for the song by one Johnny Mercer, a lyricist that you may have heard of. He's known for other songs like Moon River, which probably deserves its own podcast here, and The Days of Wine and Roses. The English version is simply titled Autumn Leaves. And I have to believe you've heard this song. If I can figure out how to do it, it will be the bumper music for this episode. So, or some version of it will be. Now, both of these versions have been recorded oodles of times. Just everybody who is anybody has done Autumn Leaves. And I read somewhere that it's been recorded commercially over 1,000 times. I read another place where it said it's been done over 1,400 times as a jazz tune. There's something about the sequencing of the chord progression that I would have to have some big brain, smart head music person come on and tell me about why this makes such a great jazz tune. I was at a restaurant the other day, and I heard over the music, I heard a jazz saxophone version of Autumn Leaves playing. I thought it was a wonderful tune, and I'm sure you know this song. Among the people who have recorded the English version are Steve Conway, Bing Crosby. You've heard these names, right? Nat King Cole, Doris Day, Frank Sinatra, Roger Williams, Steve Allen, Ray Charles, Jackie Gleason, Mitch Miller, Victor Young. There's tons of people that have recorded these. My favorite may actually be by one Eva Cassidy, who probably deserves her own episode as well. If you know Eva Cassidy, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you should look that up. And that is a wonderful story. But it's hard to have a bad recording of that song unless you are a terrible musician. Any decent musician can make a great recording of that song because it's so good. So if you are a musician, this song needs to be on your list. Now, like I said, there's two versions of this. There's the French version, which is called Les Feuilles Mortes, which is the dead leaves, and the English version. They're not simple translations of each other. It's not like you can take the French version, translate it into English, and you get it. It's the French version. It's different according to the website FrenchLearner.com. The French version is a sorrowful love song with the singer pining for a lover from whom he has been separated for many years. He makes references to the days when they were living happily together. Then he goes on to compare the ended and past romance to dead leaves that were blown away by north wind and the sea erasing their two sets of footprints on the sand. The English version is short. It's 2 4-line verses. That's substantially simpler than the 5 verses that are in the French version. So I'm sure you've heard this, but I want to go through them because they're just pretty poems on their own. In English, the simple lyrics are: the falling leaves drift by the window, the autumn leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter's song. But I miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to fall. And then typically that second 4 lines is repeated after an instrumental bridge. So it's a pretty short song. Like I said, Nat King Cole did a very famous version of it, and Eva Cassidy has a great one as well. In French, there are more memories and lamentations in the song. I would read it to you in French, but seeing how difficult of a time I had to reading just the title, I'm still working on being able to speak these things better in French. But the English translation from my friend the Google machine and other places on the interwebs, a translation might go something like this. Oh, I would like so much for you to remember the happy days when we were friends. During this time, life was more beautiful and the sun more burning than today. The dead leaves are picked up by shovel. You see, I did not forget. The dead leaves are picked up by shovel, the memories as well as the regrets. The north wind blows them away in the cold night of forgetting. You see, I didn't forget the song you used to sing to me. It is a song that looks like us. You loved me and I loved you. We both lived together. You who loved me who loved you. But life separates those who love each other very softly without making noise, and the sea erases on the sand the steps of separated lovers. So that's pretty melancholy. It's one of those classic French tunes. Beautiful lyrics in French if you get a chance to hear them. Like I said, there's a million versions out there, both in English and in French, and it's a classic. So autumn is about turning and changing, and of course it is pumpkins and football and cozy sweaters and harvest parties. But our nostalgic tendencies make it typically about the end of things. So as I walked along and crunched the leaves the other day, walking back from the place to get my car fixed, I thought about autumn as being the great reminder. It is the great reminder, tempus fugit, momento mori, Latin for time flies, remember death. Every year, the turning leaves remind us that we too are like the leaves, and we will eventually find our winter. So, how should we prepare? I think our culture has a blind spot toward death. All the evidence you need, I think, at least here in the US, is to look at the garish and unserious decorations that smother suburban lawns in preparation for All Hallows Eve. The Halloween celebration with skeletons and silly costumes and a mockery of death seems to me an arrogant refusal to accept the only sure thing besides taxes and suffering. Are you preparing for your departure, or are you pretending that your advanced technology, your iBots, and your super health are somehow going to spare you from the passing from this world? That is the question that the autumn leaves, I think, are asking you. We've talked on this show a whole bunch about how Christmas and Easter have changed everything. Are you seeking your telos, your purpose, your fundamental nature as Imago Dei, or are you hoping that somehow reality won't apply to you? Tempus fugit, Momento Mori. The falling leaves drift by the window, the autumn leaves of red and gold. The dead leaves are picked up by shovel, the memories as well as regrets. Life separates those who love each other very softly, without making noise. And the sea erases the sand, the steps of separated lovers. Life is a grand and wonderful miracle, from photosynthesis to the spectrum of the color of autumn leaves, to pumpkin lattes, and even garish Halloween decorations. Autumn comes and is followed by winter. But because of Christmas and Easter, springtime, ver in Latin, printemps in French, springtime will be coming. Make sure you are ready for autumn and winter by getting ready for springtime too. Remember to seek the good, live virtuously and flourish, and enjoy the adventure of life.
Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter song. But I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall.
It's going to be a great day.